All right, this is your practice test from MathLinks 9, Chapter 8 on solving linear equations. The first question is a multiple choice question. It says, what is the solution to the equation? Now, there are two ways you could solve this one. Now, obviously, the first way is you could substitute and simplify. So what you could do is simply take each of these expressions, or these terms, substitute them in for your x value, and see which one of them, when you simplify it, equals -1/6. So that would be one way to do it. And it would not require any algebra sense whatsoever, just BEDMAS sense with fractions. But the way that probably most of you did was you probably solved this equation and then figured out what the answer was. Now, the problem with making an answer video for this question is there are multiple ways to solve it. So I'm going to go through two of the most common ways. And the first way you would solve it would be with opposite operation. And the first thing you would say is, okay, this is my constant, this is my coefficient. I want to get rid of my constant first, so I'm going to subtract a third from both sides. So I'm going to subtract a third to get rid of the constant, and subtract a third. When I do that, I'm left with -3/2x is equal to, and then I have to find common denominators when I subtract, so -1/6 minus equivalent fraction with a denominator of 6 would be, sorry, not -2, but 2. Subtract 2/6. Now that I have that, keep your denominator and subtract your numerators. -1 take away 2 is -3. So when I subtract a third from -1/6, I get -3/6, and we're in lowest terms. So I might as well reduce it to -1/2. So erase all this. That'll work. That's equal to -1/2. Now that we have that, we've gotten rid of our constant, and we're simply going to divide both sides by the coefficient. So divide by -3/2. We know that multiplying by -3/2 and dividing by -3/2 are opposite operations, giving us x. And dividing by -3/2 is the same thing as keeping that first fraction, multiplying by the reciprocal of -3/2. And when I do that, I'm going to get a positive 2/6, which in lowest terms is 1/3. So we now know our answer is D, 1/3. So just to recap what we did there, we simply got rid of our constant first by subtracting it or adding it, depending on if it was positive or negative. In this case, positive, so I subtracted a third from both sides, and then divided both sides by the coefficient to get my answer. However, there is another way we could have done it. And if we think about this balance of equality, this algebraic balance of equality, multiplying both sides by 6 should maintain equality. And if I think, where did I get 6 from? Well, if I look at all the multiples of the denominators that are in this equation, so the denominators of 3, 2, and 6. If I look at the first multiple they share, the first value that they share as a common denominator is 6. So if I multiply a fraction by any multiple of a denominator, in this case, a third, for example, if I multiply it by 3, 6, 9, I will end up with a whole number. So by multiplying both sides by 6, I should end up, because they're all fractions, I should end up with a non-fraction equivalent equation. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to put brackets around this, and we're going to put a 6. And the reason why I'm using brackets is because there are two terms. And over here, I don't need brackets. I'm just going to multiply by 6. And since we're dealing with fractions, it's probably best to think of 6 as the whole number 6 is 6/1. So 6/1 multiplied by a third is going to be the first multiplication. 6/1 multiplied by -3/2x. Now remember, this is important too. If you think about this expression, -3/2 x, it's the same thing as -3/2x, or the same thing as -3/2 multiplied by x, or x/1, which would give you -3x/2 as an equivalent expression. So this expression here can be rewritten like this. It could also, in more practical terms, be written as a decimal coefficient as well. But we're going to treat it as the second one. We're going to treat it as -3x/2, okay? And then the last one's already written for us, so we won't worry about it. So let's just simplify each of these expressions being multiplied by 6. Now, if I did not cross-reduce this first one, 6/1 multiplied by 1/3, I get 6/3, which is still going to equal 2. If I did cross-reduce, I ended up with 2 anyway. Here I'm going to cross-reduce, so 6/2 is going to become 3/1, and 3 multiplied by -3x is -9x. And 1 times 1 is 1, which is a denominator of 1, which doesn't need to be written. And over here, 1/1, we're just going to get a -1. So again, by multiplying both sides by 6, I created this non-fraction equation that's 6 times larger on both sides. It makes it infinitely easier to isolate my variable now, right? So negative 9x is equal to negative 3. Divide both sides by negative 9, and x will equal 3/9, or positive 3/9, or in lowest terms, will still equal 1/3.